So like we always do, please choose where is a comfortable place for you to sit. That might be on a chair, it might be on the floor, any way that works for you today. And I get settled sitting cross-legged, but it doesn't have to be that way either. You can sit with your legs out or any position that really feels right for you. And we're going to take a moment to ground ourselves with our root chakras today. So like usual, see if you can locate your sitting bones. Sometimes they rock back and forth to be able to find them. Where are those bony parts of your glute, your bum area, the bony bones that anchor you to the floor? Find those ones. And just check in for a moment with your pelvic area, your hips, the joints that go from the hips to the legs. What do you notice? And there's no judgment, of course, you're just paying attention. What are you aware of today? And if you can imagine having a really, really stable base here, whether that's true or not, just imagine that you've got stability in your pelvic region, in your seat. So stable that it allows your spine to just float on up, your shoulders to be released, your neck to be comfortable. And if it's comfortable for you, close your eyes, or you could have the eyes half closed. And just take a couple of easy breaths, noticing what you're experiencing in your body. And as you notice, pay attention to areas that feel a little bit stuck or tight, restricted today, compared to areas that feel really free, unrestricted, loose. Where are those spots in your body today? I'm going to introduce the idea of a grounding cord. So think about your spine and the very, very base of your spine, your tailbone area, your root chakra. And if you think about your spinal cord as a cord, imagine that cord starting to grow into the earth. So a grounding cord extending from your spine and tailbone all the way down deep, deep, deep into the earth. Connecting you to the earth. Connecting you to the energy that we receive from the earth. And if that image doesn't work for you, of course, just let it go and breathe. But if you like it, take a moment to imagine that cord growing deeper, growing stronger, and maybe even branching out into having roots like trees have roots. A very rooted, well-anchored cord. And take some breaths. And the invitation now is to also consider the land that we're situated on, the land itself that you are resting upon, you and your grounded cord. And consider the people who've looked after these lands since time immemorial. If it feels right to you today, perhaps a little gratitude for the earth, for the part of the land that you are situated on, and for all of the people, animals, plants, all the life that came together to allow you to be here. And take another breath. And then allow yourself to let go of that imagery. Know that that grounding cord is always there for you. It actually walks around with us. But anything you need to do to let go of the imagery we've carried there. Take one more breath. Excellent. So still feeling that the weight, the heaviness of our pelvis grounding us to the earth. Stay aware of that as we now take the thumb of one hand into the palm of the other and inhale and raise our arms. And as you do that, start to notice the mobility in your shoulders. No judgment, you're just noticing. How do the shoulders feel as you raise the arms and breathe? Does anything change in the shoulders as you put your hands together and warm up your fingers for 2 breaths? And let's breathe in through the nose and a full all the way out breath through the mouth. Notice the shoulders again now as we extend the arms up, and you choose whether you'd like to bring the hands behind the neck or alternatively in front of your neck. And those place the shoulders differently. So notice your shoulders in the whichever of those you've chosen. Breathe. Notice the shoulders as you fully extend your arms now, fingers reaching skyward, but leave a little space between your ears and your shoulders. We haven't brought our shoulders all the way up to the ears, rather we've left some relaxedness there as we breathe. And as you breathe out on your next exhalation, slowly bring the hands toward your heart. Perhaps anchor your thumbs at your heart so you feel your thumbs touching your torso. And another breath. Lovely. Today we're going to go right to laying on our backs so that we can, again, work with grounding ourselves through our hips and shoulders, and also doing a little bit of freeing up of any low back constriction. So I invite you to move the things out of the way so that you can lay down on your back. And we will probably need a bit of grip, so I'm going to let go of my socks. And as you lay down, we're slowing things down enough today so that we can really feel the ground underneath us. It's part of having a grounded practice focused on stability. So as you settle yourself on the floor, feel your mat underneath you. Feel the floor that mat is on top of. And then think about the closest ground. So maybe you've got a basement, or maybe you're in an apartment building and there's still lots of space between where you are and the actual ground. That's great. Just take a moment to consider where you are and where the ground would come to meet you. And take a couple of breaths. And as you're breathing, and just easy breathing, any breathing will do, notice your hips and your pelvis. So this big midsection here that allows so much of our mobility. Take a moment just to feel the weight of your pelvis against the ground and allow it to be heavy. It is a heavier part of us because it's got so many bones and muscles in it. So allow that weight and that heaviness to anchor you to the floor. And also notice the curve that exists in your low back. And sometimes I take my hand and place it between the low back and the floor. Ideally, if our back curve is working the way it was intended to, there should be enough space for your large knuckle to be between your low back and the floor. So there is a little curve in the low back. Now, not everybody can do that, or sometimes our backs are giving us trouble. And so the other option is to take that curve out. So let's try that now. Imagine placing your low back right flat against your mat, and then allowing that little curve to happen. So we're just doing a little pelvic tilt here. Press your low back into the floor. And then reestablish that gentle curve. Let's do it one more time. Good. So we're starting to get acquainted a little bit with the pelvic area by doing that. And let's do some stretching as well. So I invite you, as we often do, to take the ankle of one leg onto the thigh of the other. And today we're going to work with the arms in cactus shape. So if it feels okay for your shoulders, I invite you to move your elbows so that your shoulder to your elbow is extended as a line, your shoulder on out to your elbow, and then your hands are at right angles. So I'll just sit up and show you. So this shape is what you're doing, but laying on the floor. So arms in cactus, notice your shoulders. They are also heavy. They are also a large joint with lots of muscles. How free or how tight do they feel today? And just notice, there's no forcing anything. You're just becoming aware, allowing a little opening there if you can breathe and release. And then returning to focus on our legs. So with our arms in cactus, we're now taking the foot that remains on the floor. We're going to lift that foot up, bringing knees and hips toward us. And take 3 big releasing breaths. What do you notice in your body? Return that foot back down and let's change sides. So the arms stay as they are, as long as it's working for you. We're just changing the legs, other ankle on other thigh. And then lifting the foot off the ground to bring the legs closer toward you for 3 big breaths. Again, what are you noticing? Is it the same both sides or different? For sure, if you're experiencing pain anywhere, then I invite you to change something. Yoga practice should not be painful. So notice so that you can make adjustments to make this the best practice for your body today. And now let's bring both knees in towards the chest and extend the arms long now. So right from shoulders on out through fingers. Your arms are just long, from shoulders on out. How do the shoulders feel now? How does the upper back feel? Opened the shoulders up. And let's see how now the pelvis feels as we take the knees into a knee drop. So both knees are going to flop over to the same side with a thud. Check in with your pelvis as you take your 3 breaths there. And we're trying to release the feet right down to the floor. And check in with your shoulders. So by moving our hips and pelvis, we may have changed something in the shoulders. Just notice that. Let's do one more breath here. Inviting some opening. Really breathing into anywhere that feels a bit tight. It's your core strength that's going to engage now. So your Kegel, your low abdominals, so that you can bring those knees back up to center. And swap them over the other way. And again, first couple of breaths is to really notice what's happening in the pelvis. What do you notice in your hips? And what's happened in the shoulders? And is it the same or different than the first side? Contract your core now, your Kegel, your low abdominals, to bring those knees back to center. And if it feels good to you, you can now bring your hands between your calves and your hamstrings and just do a little squeeze of the knees into the chest and maybe a rock back and forth. Self-massage your low back this way. Good. And place your feet back down on the mat, hip width apart. So heels are hip width, knees are hip width, toes are spread out. So lift your toes off the ground, spread them out, and now put them back down so that you really feel your feet anchoring you to the mat. And take a moment to really notice how many parts of your feet can you feel. So many of us, depending on how strong an arch you have in your foot, there may be parts of your foot that don't make contact with the mat. Or for some, there are more parts of the foot that would be making contact. So just notice what that is for you. What parts of the feet do you feel touching the mat? And can you be aware of both the feet and the pelvis simultaneously? Can you feel that heavy weight of your pelvis anchoring you to the ground? What about the shoulders? Can you feel the feet, the pelvis, and the shoulders at the same time? So in order to have a healthy back, we also need to have some core strength. So bridge pose is one of the best ones. There's a couple of really key core strengthening poses in yoga, and bridge is one. Squeeze internally your Kegel, that little internal muscle. If you can imagine raising that elevator up. When you do that, usually your low abdominals will engage, but if you like, let your mind tell those low abs to also squeeze. And now I invite you to press your big toes especially into the floor and lift your tailbone up off the ground. Just hover there for a moment. So we're activating the core to lift the tailbone up. And this is a big, big challenge. But imagine that you had such great body awareness and mobility that you could lift one vertebra up at a time. Well, let's give that a go. Lift, so your tailbone's already up, lift the next vertebra, then the next, then the next, very slowly rolling your spine up off the ground until eventually your hips are high in bridge pose. We're checking in on the ribs. Pilates teachers give us a good instruction here. We're not trying to pop the ribs as high as they can be. We're trying to keep the ribs in line with the torso, just like we would keep the spine in line. You should feel a little bit of weight now on your upper back, your shoulders, and the back of your neck. Notice that. Take a breath. And see if you can go down one vertebra at a time. So slowly with control. I know going slowly is so hard. Breathe as you slowly lower. Good. So anytime you need to take a break is fine. Anytime you need to hug your knees into your chest or extend your legs for a moment, go ahead. You take care of what your body's telling you to do. Those cues, if your body says, oh, this would feel good right now, go ahead. It's your practice. When you feel ready to do another bridge, we'll do that. So re-engage your keel, your low abs, press your big toes into the mat, lift your tailbone. And one vertebra at a time, come slowly, slowly up off the ground. What do you notice in your body? This is a challenging pose, always. Doesn't matter how many times I do bridge, I always feel it. It feels like a challenge. And if you like, we can do the variation where you drop one hip 1 inch and then use your strong low back to bring the hip back up to full height. Drop the other hip 1 inch. Use the multifidi muscles in the back. Bring them back up. Go back and forth that way a couple of times. Now, unless that's not feeling right for your back for any reason, then of course, we'll just come on out and do something that feels better for you. So we're lowering now, one vertebra at a time. And once you're down, really feeling again the heaviness of the pelvis, grounding you, reconnecting with the heaviness in the shoulders and the feet on the floor. And let's hug the knees now, rock side to side, let all of that go. And extend your legs fully out. Extend your arms above your head. Be a tall, long body. Toes and fingers reaching away from each other. Extending the spine, taking a breath. And bring them back in. Good. So we're going to do just a little bit more. All of these are excellent core strengtheners. So a little squeeze for your Kegel and your low abs, allowing your leg to come up so that the calf is parallel to the floor. Keep the core engaged. Bring the other leg up. Excellent. So right now, both calves are parallel to the floor. Now we're going to extend just one leg. I'll start with my right. So keeping the core a little bit activated, extend one heel towards the sky. So that should cause a lengthening through the back of the leg, bit of a stretch. And bring it back in. And then we're just doing the right leg. Do it again. Let's do 5 of these. Right leg extends with a heel press and comes back in. Extends, heel pressed. Come back in. Whether you feel it or not, your core is strengthening by doing this move. And you'll notice there's also muscles that are lengthening as we do this. Good. Hug those knees into your chest, rock side to side. And then re-engage the core, reposition the legs so that knees are above the hips, calves are parallel to ground. And let's work with the left leg now, keeping the core activated, a little heel press skyward, and then back in. 5 times with the left leg. And as you do, notice the pelvis. Does it move around? Does it stay pretty stable? What's happening for you as you move your foot and leg? Keep breathing. Excellent. And let's go straight into both legs. So if this is working for you, we're now both legs extended and then come back in. If possible, you're still squeezing the Kegel, activating the core. And we're breathing, perhaps breathing out when you extend skyward, breathing in to come back. Breathe out, extend skyward, flex feet. Breathe in to come back. One more. And hug those knees in, rock side to side. Excellent work. If it feels right to you, we're going to rock and roll along the spine. Pardon me. Starting to rock onto the low on the tailbone and then up onto the shoulders. Now that won't work for everybody. So see how this is for you. And then rock yourself up to a seated position or push yourself up to seated if that's better. And grab a sip of water. Excellent. So now we're going to take a moment to work with our feet, our hands and our feet. So sit any way that's comfortable for you. We're doing a little self-massage as we take care of these feet that ground us to the earth all day long. So you can give yourself a foot massage. You can do it any way that feels good. Really, your foot is going to tell your hands and fingers where's a good place to press that feels really helpful. If you need a few ideas, you can also start by pressing on the heel. So kind of working your thumbs all the way around the edge of the heel. And then seeing if you can slide one thumb from kind of the fleshy part where the heel touches the rest of the foot. Slide all the way up to the ball of the foot. And then go back to the heel and move over a thumb width. Slide up again, maybe towards the second toe. And so on. Notice what you feel. I go to Footworks in Vancouver sometimes for reflexology. There's lots of places that provide reflexology. I know nothing about it. I don't have anything to offer in that space, except that I love it. And they always do find spots in the foot that feel like, oh, something's going on there. So you're watching for that. Now squeezing the toes, perhaps. Are there spots for you where your foot feels a little tight, a little sensitive, or spots that just feel great when you press them? Good. Maybe a little squeeze of the Achilles as well. A little bit into the ankle. Good. And then just shake that foot for a minute. Get the blood head down there. Shake it out and go to the other foot. So let's do with a little more intention this time. Hands together, getting some warmth, some energy happening between your fingers. You have healing hands. Place them on your next foot. And again, let your thumbs explore which parts of the foot really need some attention. You are worth so much care. Take this moment to give this little bit of care to yourself through your feet. Well, let's breathe as we do this. I'm also pressing on the ball of the foot, kind of under the toe joint area. You could also slide your fingers along the top of the foot between all those little sensitive bones. And maybe some toe squeezes. And again, the Achilles on this side, a little bit into the ankle. And when that feels complete for you, start to give it a shake. Let the blood flow all the way from the hips and pelvis down the leg to the foot and toes. Good. Excellent. I now invite you to come onto your knees if that works for you. So maybe you need to put some cushioning under your knees to make them happy. Whatever you need to do. We're going to try a couple of things. The first thing we're doing is just settling ourselves sitting on the knees with heels and hips connected to each other. Now, not everybody can make that connection. That doesn't work for all bodies. So if you have a blanket or a towel or a bolster, you might set that in between your heels and your hips, which is a little bit less of an angle, less intensive for your knees and for your joints. So see if that works for you. You can throw a sweatshirt. And let's take a couple of breaths. If it totally doesn't work, if you try and it just is not right for you, then it might be better for you to be fully upright from knees to hips. See how that is. Or you can simply just sit any way you like for a moment. Let's take 3 breaths here, getting the stretch through the thighs. Feeling the heaviness of the pelvis, which is not directly in contact with ground, but is still anchoring us with gravity towards the earth. Are your shoulders freed up in this pose? Is your neck easy? Good, and we're going to move from here into our neck stretch. So if you like being on your knees, we can do the side neck stretch from here. If your body's telling you, oh, I've had enough in this position, then find whatever position is preferred. You could be sitting or standing. And let's lift an ear for 2 big breaths, just letting the head hang there. Enjoying the stretch through the neck. You might try reaching the fingers on either side. So you're walking your fingers a little bit away from the body. Depending how long your arms are, your fingers might still touch the mat or they might lift off. How does that change what you feel in your neck? After 2 breaths, take it to the other side. 2 more big breaths in through the nose and all the way out through the mouth. Let's do both sides twice. We're really aiming for more mobility in our neck, more release through our neck and shoulders because it's all connected. To the second side when you're ready. 2 more big breaths. Inviting release. Good. And once you're back at center, today, we're just going to simply move the head side to side. You're not adding the 2 breaths to it today. Just see how the neck feels as it looks to one side wall and the next. Good. And now we're going to change the position of our knees and lower body so that we can stretch through our hands and wrists. So in yoga, our hands are often a part that is grounding us because we put some weight on our hands and our fingers for many of our poses. So let's take a moment to work with the hands. We've got a couple of options. If you feel like, yeah, you've done this one before where we turn the fingers, to point towards the knees so that we could open up the wrists. If you know that that's too intense for you, then use one hand to push on the palm of the other to get this beautiful opening through the forearm and the wrist. Or put your hands on the floor, fingers pointed towards your knees, curl your toes and start to sit your bum back toward your heels. You get to adjust how much intensity you want to have here. You can sit the bum closer or less close from the heels to change that intensity. And let's breathe. Can you feel the pads of the fingers touching the ground if you've chosen this way? Can you feel your hands against each other if you've chosen the alternative? And we'll change it now, flipping the hands over, resting on the back of the hands. Fingers are still pointed towards your knees. Not much pressure. We're going to be really gentle with how much weight we put here. And again, you decide how far can your hips sit towards your heels and breathe. And of course, the alternate is to press on the back of the hand now, getting the stretch through the reverse top part of the forearm. And breathe. And then let's shake out the arms, just like we did with the feet. Give those arms a shake. Get the blood flowing all the way down to these fingers. We use our wrists and our fingers, our hands all the time. They also need our care. Excellent. We're going to go into more of an active practice now. And of course, I'll give you alternates for anyone who needs them. So if you know that active practice is sometimes a challenge, I invite you to get a chair. And I'll try and show you options on the chair as we go along. So, coming to a plank position. Hands underneath shoulders or hands on chair. And you're going to see how the low body feels today about plank. Do you want a full plank with the body fully off the ground? Or would you like to have a knees down plank? Both of them are building arm strength. With both of them, we're trying to feel the fingers, feel the parts of the hands that are in contact with either the floor or the chair. That's working for you. From plank pose, bend your right knee in towards your nose and then send it back out. Left knee towards nose, send it back out. Oh, those cores are working. If your knees are down, same deal. Right knee toward nose and back. Left knee toward nose and back. Chair, same thing. So just keep going at your own pace. Making sure you're breathing. Now we're going to shift it a little bit. So from chair or floor, whatever you've chosen. We're now going to bring the knee a little bit out. So instead of the knee coming straight toward the nose, you're opening your hip Kind of like your foot position would be in a tree. And bringing the knee sideways towards the head. I'm having trouble describing words. I hope you can figure it out. So it's very similar to what we just did. We're just changing the position of the hip. Kind of like little frog legs. Breathe. Well, this is a lot of work. This is a lot of arm strength. You could also be down on your forearms if your wrists need a break at any point. Let's do one more on each side. And bring those knees down, resting in pose of child. 3 breaths here, letting all of that go. And round yourself back up. We're going to go into a downward facing dog. All of those poses that we've done up till now were partly to open us up so that downward facing dog, which is an excellent pose for so many parts of the body, is more accessible to us. So like before, you have the option of doing a downward dog from the chair. If you're choosing that option, you're just exploring how far you want to take your feet back and how much can you lengthen through your arms. So you're going to play around with the position there. For those who are doing more traditional, hands under shoulders, knees under hips, curl your toes to take weight, spread your fingers, feel the connection of the pads of the fingers to the mat, and now send your hips high. And press those hips far, far back. And really pressing them back, maybe pressing them a little higher. And if it feels right to you, you do that little bicycle shape, bending one knee and then the other. We're going to hold here for several breaths. Let's see if you can find a way to do this pose that is holdable for you. Continuing to push the hands into the floor, into the ground. Send your hips a little further back. Good. We're going to start with the left leg today. If it feels right to you, lift your left leg up so that you're now in a 3-legged dog. Take a breath in. If possible, step forward with that left leg. Excellent. Plant your back foot. So that's for me, that's my right foot. Into a warrior foot position. So the foot's at a bit of a diagonal. And take a moment to feel that foot grounding you. How many parts of that foot can you feel on the ground? Find stability. So much so that you can bring yourself up. Good. And we may have to change the position of the legs. See how wide you want to be, or perhaps less wide from one foot to the other, so that you can aim your hips towards your front knee and lift your arms above, shoulders low. 3 breaths here. Feel your feet grounding you. We've created a twisting in the pelvis. Feel the heaviness of the pelvis with gravity. Take your hands behind you, interlacing your fingers, and start to straighten your elbows so that we have beautiful width across the chest. If it works for you, lift your arms up and away from the body. And 3 breaths here. Release the fingers. Lift the arms back up. Take a wider step and open the arms as you come into more of a traditional warrior position. So we've got one knee bent. For me, it's still the left. We've got a fairly big space between the feet. The right foot is still in that diagonal warrior shape. And the arms have opened up. Today, we're going to open up the palms towards the sky, dropping the shoulders and breathing as you get lots of openness across the chest for the heart, feeling the shoulders, feeling the pelvis, and feeling the feet. Check out the knee that you have bent. So for me, that's my left. We're going to send both hands to hover over top of that left knee or whatever knee is bent. And then if possible, they're now coming down either all the way to the floor again or onto the chair, whatever works for you. Turning all the toes now to face forward for 3 breaths. What do you notice in your body? Where is there tightness or restriction? And what starts to feel like it's being strengthened in a good way? Keeping the head in line with the spine here. And now dropping the back knee gently, pointing the back toe. You decide, does your knee need a cushion? Feel free to put some socks or sweater, towel under there. Scoot your front toes forward. And find a position here that can be a beautiful opening for your inner thighs, for your groin, for the leg muscles, for the hips, but not painful. We want to be able to hold here for several breaths. Releasing on each breath out. One more breath here. Beautiful. Come back to hands and knees. I'm going to put myself around. I'm going to do all of that on the next side. So you do have to remember which leg you used first. We're taking a little moment to breathe here. Some equilibrium in the body. And getting ready for the second side, starting with downward facing dog. So remembering you can do that using the chair, hold the chair if you wish, or feel your fingers on the floor or the chair. Feel the pads of the fingers making contact with the ground. Curl your toes. Feel the toes anchoring you to ground. And now, use your strong arms to push your hips high and far back. Push more with the hands and the fingers. Send those hips even further back. And try the little bicycle again if you'd like. You're continuing to make this long shape from the tips of your fingers all the way up to the top of your hips. Getting that to be as long as possible, yet still grounded through your fingers and your toes. So this time it'll be the right leg that comes up. Hold there in three-legged dog for a breath. If possible for you, you're going to step forward with that right foot now. Take a moment to find your stability through your feet. And then take your back foot a little bit closer than it was to the front. At a 45-degree angle with the back foot. And when the legs feel stable, bring yourself to standing. Good. We're bending the front knee. So for me, that's now my right. Making sure that the stance is small enough, short enough distance between my feet that I can point my hips forward towards the front bent knee. And then lifting those arms up, holding for 3 breaths. What do you notice? Let the 4 corners of each foot anchor you. Bring the hands behind you, interlace your fingers, pull the wrists apart from each other, and lift the arms up and away from the back. Hips are still pointed towards the front knee, and we're breathing here. Big open chest, making space for your beautiful hearts. Letting that go with the hands. And changing the distance between your feet to wider. Shifting your hips so that instead of pointing towards the front knee, they're now pointed more towards the side wall. Opening up the arms, palms facing up today, so that we are big and open through our chest and heart area. We've still got one knee bent, and we can decide how much to bend it to get more or less stretch through the legs. 3 breaths here. Notice your feet. Notice your pelvis. Notice your shoulders. Check out the bent knee. Bring both your hands to hover over the bent knee and then send them down towards the floor or the chair. Turn all your toes to face forward. And you might have to widen the distance between your feet. Holding here now for 3 breaths. Head in line with spine. Feeling your feet and your hands touching the earth. Gently bringing your back knee down, pointing your back toes, scooting your front toes forward. Doing anything you need to protect your back knee, so feel free to put cushion there. And now please change this position to be 10% more comfortable. What can you do? What does your body tell you to do? So that this can be a pose that you really release into. And let's breathe. One more big breath here. Excellent. Come to hands knees for a moment. Just take a little break for water. We're almost to Shavasana. We'll do one pose lying on our stomachs today. It is an arm strengthener, does use the hands, and we've done it before. So laying fully outstretched on your belly. You have to move things out of the way. I know you've used your arms a lot already today. And this uses more of the forearms. So we opened the forearms for a stretch. Now we're going to strengthen them. Spread your fingers out and have the fingers anchoring you just underneath your shoulders. Rest your head on your chin. And rock your hips so that you've released any tension. So for this pose, there's no core needed. You want your belly to be floppy. You want your back to be settled, released. And we're doing a really small but controlled, slow movement. So keeping your low body completely relaxed. From your head on your chin, use your strong hands to push your chin and your chest off the ground. Don't use your core, don't use your back. And then let your strong arms slowly bring the head back down. We're going to do this between 6 and 10 times, whatever your body says you're up for today. Breathe any way you need to, and don't go too high. You get a lot more control by going slowly and less high. And do keep your elbows tucked in like little wings. So the elbows are not on the ground. My elbows are not touching the mat, but they are touching the sides of my body. Feel your fingers still grounding you. Tops of your feet grounding you as well. Heavy pelvis staying released down. Good. I've lost count, but I think we're about at 10. Excellent. Touch your chin, touch your forehead. Rest your arms beside you. Rock your hips to make sure they didn't get used. And rest your head on each cheek for one breath. And turn yourself over to lay on your back for Shavasana. Or alternately, if you'd rather do it seated, find your way to a sitting position. The next part is very much about relaxation. And add any warmer layers if you need. Some water if you like, so you're getting settled. And whether you're sitting or lying down, take the time now to let the ground come up and hold you. Gravity is anchoring your body to this earth. Take a moment to feel that. Breathe and release into it. Be held. Provide some words as guidance for this time of rest. You're welcome to listen to the words, let them wash over you, or to not listen at all and just be restful in your own way. Relaxation is a time for coming into yourself. Reading a first part of this guided meditation is from Susi, Aldous. This time is for getting in touch with how you are with your day and how your day is with you. It enables you to tap into your flow and to set a baseline from which you can take on your other activities. Breathe gently here as you unwind muscle and fascia. Tap into connecting to who and what you are. We often use this time to become aware of breath. I invite you now to notice, how are your inhale and exhale moving? Are you having to concentrate in order to relax today? Or is the relaxation feeling quite accessible today? Are you able to feel where your breath is moving in your body? You might feel breath easily in the belly, or the rib cage, or somewhere else. Are there places that feel still tight or stuck, where it's more difficult for the breath to be extended to? I invite you to breathe comfortably here. And as we did at the start of the class, if you like, imagine a grounding cord that runs from the base of your spine deep into the earth. Imagine in your mind's eye any excessive mental energy running down your spine and dissipating through the grounding cord into the earth. Continue to breathe comfortably. Imagine the grounding cord now growing roots like giant trees. Picture the roots of your grounding cord intermingling with the roots of giant trees. Next, imagine that you can draw energy up from the earth through your grounding cord. The centered strength of the trees is accessible to you too through the intermingled roots. We'll continue that way for 2 more minutes silently. I invite you to let go now of the imagery that's come to you. Bring your awareness back into your own body, into the room that you are in, and take 3 easy breaths, maybe sighing breaths. And begin to stretch and move the body any way that feels good now. Let your body guide you. Oh, what movements does it want? If you're lying down, I invite you to turn onto your side. Pause there for a moment. And then bring yourself up to sitting. Once you're sitting, I invite you to move anything out of the way so that you can sit in a mermaid sit position. So we've got one leg. For me, I've got the shin of my front leg parallel to the long end of my mat. The foot is anchored against the other thigh. And then I've got one foot hanging off here to the side. That's what we call a mermaid sit. It's difficult or impossible sometimes to anchor both your sitting bones in this position. So this one, it's okay. Feel the parts of you that are anchored, parts of your pelvis that are anchored, and just notice the parts that are floating up off the ground. And let's take the arms out to each side. Put one hand down onto the mat as you take the other hand into a side stretch, and then go the other way. And we're just going back and forth at your own pace. One hand on the mat, the other overhead in a side stretch, and then reverse. And maybe you move to the pace of your breathing. Noticing the pelvis. Noticing the amazing spine that can move in so many directions. Bringing a little more mobility, hopefully, to your shoulders here. One more. And then we'll change the legs so that the other leg is now in front. And the other leg is hanging off to the side. So we've switched the legs, noticing our pelvis, hands on either side of us. And again, starting to move into this side stretch at your own pace with your breath. Let's do one more on each side here. Excellent. I invite you to come to standing, and we'll close the class today with breath of joy. Just going to change the camera angle a little bit. So slowly coming to standing, because we've been down. Take it easy. And once you're standing, anchor your feet hip width apart from each other. Toes spread. Find the four corners of each foot, anchoring you to the earth. Feel the pelvis on top of those feet, joined by the legs, still heavy, still grounding us with gravity. Let the spine lengthen nice and tall, shoulders easy, neck easy. Good. Breathe here. Breath of joy can be a big move or a small move, and you have to make that decision based on what you know about your back. So we're going to be doing anything from this tiny move, little breath in, fingers up, little breath in, fingers up, little breath in, fingers up, and then all the way out. So that's the small version that doesn't ask a lot of the spine. All the way to the big version, if your spine is healthy, then the arms up for a sip of air in, arms out to the side for a sip of air in, arms overhead for a sip of air in, and then a big giant ha, releasing it all out. So you find the amount of movement that your spine can tolerate today. And let's go ahead. Ha! Lots of audibles. Ha! Ha! Letting go of anything you're carrying. Ha! 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 Three more. Ha! Ha! Last time. Ha! And then stand. Feel grounded through your feet as you notice the energy moving through you. If you're lightheaded at all, just get low to the ground. Take an easy time. Feeling the energy move around. Breathing out fully. Taking the thumb of one hand into the palm of the other. Inhale as you raise your arms overhead. Breathe out fully through the mouth. Another breath. Hands together. 2 breaths here. Feeling the pads of the fingers connecting to each other. Hands up and then behind the neck or in front of the neck. Full extension, breathing in. Slow hands to heart, breathing out. Connect your thumbs at your heart. And one last breath. Namaste. As ever, thank you so much for joining me for yoga. It wouldn't be this class unless you all showed up. So thank you for making the time for yourself to practice with me. And I wish you a wonderful week. See you next Sunday.